Welcome and bienvenido to a new special series of My Surrogacy Journey's podcast, Mexico City Edition Season 2. This is all about guiding American intended parents through surrogacy in Mexico City. So welcome everybody to another episode. I'm Jess. I'm a mom through surrogacy and the membership manager for our US to Mexico program. We are incredibly excited to have recently launched this program to support US intended parents who want to come to Mexico City to do their surrogacy journeys. And this is alongside our intended parents from kind of at current count, 17 other countries. So today we are recording this episode in our studio in Birmingham, England, where our global headquarters is located. So you may have heard me and Wes and Michael from other episodes. Most of those other episodes were recorded at our gorgeous Polanco offices in Mexico City. So if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry that the view isn't quite as stunning. Birmingham is beautiful outside, maybe not quite as sunny or as warm as Mexico City. But I'm really glad to be here back in the UK. But, make sure that you do check out some of our other episodes on YouTube. Really, hopefully, because they're pretty informative and educational and hopefully you'll learn something, but also because, let's be honest, that skyline of Mexico City is gorgeous. So if you have listened to any of our other episodes, you've also probably heard me talking alongside MSJ's co-founders and co-CEOs, Michael and Wes. But today I am your sole host. However, I am not alone in the studio because I am so excited to be joined by Carly. Carly is MSJ's Global Membership Director, and I have had the privilege of working with Carly now, ever since I joined MSJ. So Carly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you for that welcome, Jess. So yes, my name's Carly. I am Membership Director for My Surrogacy Journey. And I have been with MSJ since 2022, I think. So coming up to 3 years now. And yeah, I started the launch of Mexico City, which in a blink of an eye, we're now here, 3 years later.
Yeah.
And
with a few more intended parents.
Yes, a few more intended parents, a few more membership managers, a few more global destinations. And yeah, and it's been an honour. And now I'm sat here doing a podcast.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming to do this podcast. And for all of our listeners, I'm so excited that you have the opportunity to hear from Carly and to learn from her expertise. She has been here, as she said, kind of almost from the very start, and certainly from the very start of Mexico City. So there's really nothing like any questions that any of us have, including Mike and Wes, oftentimes we'll have about the program. We're just like, Carly, what's the answer to this, please? And she'll know it. So I'm so excited for you guys to have that opportunity to hear directly from her as well. So if you've listened to the podcast before, you know that what we try and do in every episode is to really break it down to a specific stage of the journey so that you, as our intended parents, have that opportunity to really kind of understand some of the ins and outs of a particular element. And obviously a surrogacy journey is incredibly long. It's incredibly complicated. So hopefully by doing this, we're really just kind of teasing out some of the finer points to make you feel comfortable and confident. And again, to provide that education, because you might not have decided that My Surrogacy Journey is the agency for you. And obviously that's totally okay. We have a lot of intended parents who are listening to this as they're starting to consider what is going to be the best option and who the best partners are going to be for their journey. So, if you are at that stage, I think, at least for me, as an intended parent, when I was considering my own journey and going through it, understanding how I was going to be matched with a surrogate it's this like whole magical thing where you just don't necessarily know how it's going to happen. How do you get matched with somebody who's going to be carrying your baby? Carly is essential to that process. Carly does all of our matching with our intended parents and our surrogates. So I'm really excited for you guys to have the opportunity to hear a little bit about how that happens. So shall we dive right into it?
Let's go.
Okay, let's do it. So I guess the first kind of question is, how do we determine at MSJ when intended parents are kind of ready to be matched?
For a set of intended parents to be ready to be matched, we need to look at it holistically. So let's say, for instance, they are creating embryos. So are they using their own gametes or do they need donor? So when is the timeline for that? Where are they creating those embryos? Then we need to look at that timeline. Are they transporting those embryos? Do they require permits? So then we need to look at the transportation side of their embryos. We also need to consider the timeline to when they're going to be matched with a surrogate and how long our matching time is at that time to be matching with the surrogate, with the intended parents. So we need to look at that holistically and then put a plan in place for the timelines that it will take to match you with a surrogate.
Okay, amazing. So there's a lot of moving parts that we have to consider.
Correct.
Okay, fantastic. So, hopefully for intended parents, we're not just going to put you, we're not just going to say, right, on the third Wednesday of next month, you're going to be matched. It's kind of looking at your journey, but also making sure that we're doing things in parallel because we want to, as Carly was talking about, either creating your embryo or transporting your embryo, we want to be doing that, in parallel to potentially making you ready or getting you ready, I should say, to be matched with your surrogate.
Yes, of course, because if we match you too early and you're not going to Mexico for embryo creation until 4 months after we match you, the surrogates, rightly so, isn't going to be wanting to wait that long because there's other things then that happen in parallel, the insurance, the contracting. That is a timeline in itself to when we can do embryo transfer. So there's a lot of things that we need to take into consideration when we're matching you with that surrogate.
And just to add to all of those points that you've just made is also the surrogate screening. So we have another episode of this podcast about the screening that we do with our surrogates. So please take a listen to that. But for some of that screening and specifically that in-person medical examination, that has a timeline, right? So if we have screened a surrogate and cleared her medically, but again, as you said, you're not creating embryos for 4 months, then that medical screening is going to go out of date. And so again, there's no point in matching you with that specific surrogate at that particular time because it's just going to actually prolong the process in the end.
Yeah, exactly, Jess, you do. And then we need to redo that. There's more cost involved to the intended parents because she would need to pay for that rescreening. And it's not fair. It's not fair on the intended parents. It's not fair on the surrogate. And it's more cost, it's more time. And then you're potentially going to have to rematch with another surrogate because the surrogate's going to get, upset with the wait. It's affecting her life. It's affecting the intended parent's life. So we need to take all things into consideration when we're matching.
So it's a very tricky balance.
It is a
But
very tricky balance.
that you managed to do it beautifully.
We manage so far. We manage.
Brilliant. And so when intended parents then, let's assume that they have their embryos, they've either created them or they're in country and they are ready to be matched. How, like when you're looking at intended parents, how do you kind of think, well, this intended parent and this surrogate is going to be a good match? They're going to be a good fit. How do you determine that?
So intended parents and surrogates all complete a profile. So within that profile, it's you giving the intended parent and the surrogate information about yourself within a profile as much as you can within that profile. So it's interests and hobbies, it's what communication you want during and post birth, it's the relationship you want with your surrogate. So it's all that information about yourself, and the surrogate will put the same things down. So then that allows me to get to know you. Obviously, the intended parents I get to know because I manage those, but the surrogates I don't. So I review the profile. I speak to the team in Mexico about the surrogate. So then that allows me to match the intended parents with the surrogate that I feel and the Mexico City team feel will be a good match.
So it's not just like who gets to the top of the list first. There's a lot of consideration in making sure that we feel that those individuals and those people are going to be a really good fit for each other for the journey ahead.
Yeah. And also, some intended parents might not want a relationship post birth, and that's okay because everybody is different and, we respect that. But then I won't match a surrogate with an intended parents that wants a relationship post birth because that's not a match. So you need to take everything into consideration when you match it. And it's a long process. It takes time because I need to review those profiles in depth and make sure I'm matching the right intended parents with the right surrogate and vice versa, because then that's obviously going to have an impact then later on in the journey when we do get to that communication during and post birth, when you then have the relationship breaks down. So we need to manage that really sensitively.
And so clearly it's important for intended parents to be filling out this intended parent profile accurately and honestly. So you already spoke about communication preferences and what relationship they want. What are some other things that intended parents should be thinking about, and particularly as it kind of relates to what they might want to, like that information that they might want to include in a profile, things that are important to them and important for you to know as you be matching them?
So another section of the profile is views on termination. And the reason why we ask this on the profile is because not all intended parents and surrogates will have the same view. This will also be in the surrogate and the intended parent contract, because of the laws in Mexico City are very specific around termination before 12 weeks or after 12 weeks, depending on the medical reason for a termination. So we need to make sure that our views align. So we would ask you within your profile to write down your views on termination so that we can match you with a surrogate that align your views. So that's often another part of the matching process that I do take into consideration.
Yeah, and it's a really important one, and it's not an easy one. So actually, I think that's great that you've brought it up. I mean, it's not easy for any intended parent to hear that that's a possibility. But for us and for anybody who's ever listened to any of our podcasts with Wes on it, you'll hear him always talk about how to kind of manage and mitigate risk. From a clinical perspective, we're doing that all the time. But for us, if this horrible situation ever did arise, we want to make sure that we have done everything we can to address that possibility. And again, make sure that views are aligned. And it's maybe not an easy answer for intended parents. So, thank you for bringing that up, Carly, because I think it is really important. And particularly for intended parent couples, that might be a difficult conversation to have. And it might not be one that everybody automatically aligns on from the outset. So it's a great thing it's not a happy thing, but it is a great thing to start having those discussions about. Okay, great. Thank you. And so once you have found that potential match, you have intended parents and you think you have found a surrogate who you feel is going to be a really great fit for them, what are kind of the next steps? How do you present that match? Who sees that profile first?
So the intended parent will always see the surrogate profile first. So they will need to review that profile, make sure they're happy with the profile. If they have any questions or they would like to get to know the surrogate a bit better, but over email communication via me to the Mexico City team, we can do that. Once they have all the information that they need about that surrogate, we will then arrange a call. So this will be done by the Mexico City team, because obviously I don't speak Spanish. I wish I did, but I don't. So the Mexico City team will do that. They will all help with translation. The call is about 30 minutes long and it's just a get to know each other call. So again, they can elaborate on the questions that they had, get to know her support network, what she does for work a little bit more, what she enjoys doing in her spare time, get to know her children a little bit better and her family. Once they've had that call then and they confirm a match, this is when we'll then move on to next steps.
Okay, fantastic. And so the intended parents get to see the profile, and obviously the surrogate will be on the call with them. Does the surrogate see the intended parents profile? Does she have the opportunity to say, yes, this is a couple that I want to move forward with potentially, or what, actually, this is not quite the intended parents that I had in mind when I decided to be a surrogate? Does she have a say as well?
The intended parents will always see the surrogate profile first. And then if the intended parent like the surrogate, the intended parent profile will then be shared with the surrogate.
Okay, perfect. So the surrogate does see the intended parent profile as well. And she has just as much say as the intended parents over the match.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. What happens if we present intended parents a profile of a surrogate and they think actually this person is not necessarily the right fit for us? What happens then?
We have had that, not on many occasions, but we do. And that's absolutely fine. Not everybody's going to have that right fit on the first profile share. We just need you to let us know why. What didn't resonate with you? What would you want to see different in the next profile? And then we would give you an estimated time for a new profile share. And then we would share a new profile with you.
Okay, amazing. That sounds really it. That's
pretty it.
So simple, so easy.
You might need to wait about a week or two for a new profile to come through, and then we would share a new profile with you. But it's just important that you let me know what didn't resonate with you on that profile, so I don't share a new profile with you similar to that one.
Yeah, and presumably it's the same for after match meeting as well. If the intended parents go away and think actually she was lovely, just again didn't resonate,
Just wasn't the right
same thing, right?
person. Yeah, of course. And it's the same with the surrogate. If you had that intended parent and surrogate call and the surrogate just didn't get that connection or just didn't get that vibe, she would just let us know what it was during that meeting. It's nothing personal. You know, some people just aren't going to have that initial connection, and that's absolutely fine. We just make sure that we didn't share a similar profile on the next one.
The next, yeah, makes total sense. So you've spoken already about the match meeting and about some of the elements that will be covered, some of the questions that intended parents might want to ask. How would you suggest intended parents prepare for that meeting? So, coming up with a list of questions, yes, absolutely. But, also kind of like emotionally, because it's a big deal meeting your potential surrogate. Yes, virtually, but you're still meeting her for the first time. What advice do you have?
What I've been doing to date is I always have a call with the intended parents prior to this meeting, because I think it's such a big hurdle for the IPs to get to. Like you say, Jess, emotionally, it's that big milestone that you're getting to, and you're meeting somebody that's potentially going to be carrying your baby. So I always give the intended parents a list of questions to consider that they might not have thought of. Most of the time, the IPs have already got a list of questions, but it may not be all of the ones that they may have considered. And it's getting to know this person on that deeper level than what the profile has shown, all those questions that you may have asked via me and the Mexico team. And it's understanding her values, what she wants from that journey, what kind of communication does she want, what support does she need from you as intended parents, and just making sure that you have that initial connection, that yes, this is somebody that we can trust, that values our needs and our emotions, and that we can connect on that level then to move to those next steps. And I always say, if you don't get that initial connection or that initial vibe from that call, that's okay. Don't put too much pressure on it. We can always arrange another call. And if that just doesn't feel right, then that's fine. We can share a new profile with you, because this is a big decision.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest decisions you're going to make, and it needs to be right.
Amazing. I think that about sums it up. I mean, I think that's I know, but I do. I think that's like a wonderful note to end on, because hopefully for intended parents, we recognize what a big deal this is. We don't necessarily shout about that we have 31 proprietary questions that we ask to make sure you're a good match, but we get to know you as individuals, as a couple. Our team in Mexico is doing exactly the same with the surrogate, so that, we have a really good appreciation for who you are as people and what you need out of a journey, and what that relationship with your surrogate would look like, and vice versa, what a surrogate's relationship with her intended parents looks like, in order for everybody to be fulfilled. And, hopefully you also appreciate the amount of support. We're not just throwing you in the deep end. We're not saying here's a phone call with your surrogate and not helping you, and off you go. Yeah, exactly. And try and do it on dual
left to it on your own. You've got that scaffolding, you've got that support, you've got that emotional support. And, when you often get to that big next step, it's like, wow, we're here. Yeah. What happens next?
Yeah.
And, MSJ is supported around all of those next step and all of those crucial elements that you need then to guide you through that next step.
Yeah.
And that's what you get at every hurdle.
Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what, Carly, you just so excel at that. And you are so supportive and clearly care so strongly about all your intended parents. I mean, it's so obvious. And hopefully the rest of us membership managers are following in your footsteps of providing that, kind of 360 holistic care, supportive scaffolding to our intended parents, because it really does make all the difference.
It does.
In the world.
It's not hard, is it?
No, because
we've got a great team.
Oh, thanks. Well, we have a great leader, and a great global director in you. So anyway, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your wisdom, and just hopefully demystifying that matching process for intended parents. I mean, it's not, I hate to say it because it's not rocket science, but it takes somebody and a team who really care deeply about
the difference.
Yeah, who care deeply about our members. And, again, our members are our intended parents and our surrogates. Everybody here is equal and is treated equally and with the same level of care and respect and consideration. And hopefully this episode for you, our listeners, is just going to give you that reassurance that Carly really cares about making that right match, that we're going to be doing this in a timeline which fits your needs. and is hopefully going to allow you to smoothly transition to the next step, which is contracting with your surrogate. And again, we have another episode all about that. So please do keep listening if you want to know more about that next legal step. But that we're doing this with care and consideration. So Carly, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and, again, all that care and compassion and support you provide to our intended parents. So for you, our listener, I really hope that you enjoyed today's episode and that it managed to answer all of your questions. Again, demystify that process and just kind of give you a little bit more to think about in terms of maybe what you are potentially looking for in a match, so that when you do join us as members, you can let me and Carly know what you're looking for and we can match you with the best surrogate possible. If you want more information about our services, our pathways, or anything else, please head over to mysurrogacyjourney.com because we'd love to help you figure out the best way to build your family. So thank you again for taking the time to listen today. Thank you, Carly, for joining me. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Feel free to like, share, leave a review if it has been helpful. So yeah, until next time, hasta luego.
Bye.
Bye.